Tommy Stinson from Cowboys in the Campfire. You're listening to All Over the Place podcast, where the funsanity never ends. And I mean it.
Hello and welcome back to All Over the Place, the official podcast of Media Pub Live. I'm your host, Eric Provoznik, and we've got Jim Culver in the house tonight. Hello, Jim.
How are you?
And Christine, unfortunately, not with us live and in person tonight, but we have with us, joining the Threefer Club for a Threefer, Zoe Rachel. How are you doing? Welcome back to the show.
Groovy, man. Hey, thanks for having me on, y'all.
Well, when it comes to music, few people, I don't bow down to people who know more about music than I do, and I think you're in a very select club on that one. So always love having you back for music.
Oh, no pressure.
No pressure whatsoever. And so why don't you tell people, because you just recently released a cover doing your deconstruction reconstructions, and your latest one is of Kenny Loggins. So why don't you tell our All Over the Place audience what's going on with what we can look forward to next?
Oh man, okay. So I guess I'm kind of like I call it putting a sledge edge on Gen X jams, man. I like to take songs from like the 70s and 80s. You know, just add a little bit of metal to them, man. It's not a new thing to do. It's just my own personal take on how to do it. That's what everybody does, right? Who's going to do a cover? But that's like the thing that I like to target the most is like songs from the 70s and the 80s, or like I said, Gen X jams. And sometimes it's one of those things where it's like people get mad at me. It's like, dude, you're making me like a song that I never would have listened to back in the day, man. It's like I never would have listened to that song, or that's not just like a song that I like. But now that you've done it, I like it, right? So that's just
that's one thing I've never liked, the whole guilty pleasures thing. You either like it or you don't. If you're feeling guilty, well, you might be a Catholic, but that's a different show.
Here, eat this cracker, you'll feel better. There you go.
Yeah,
I resemble that.
That's us. Just be sure you go over, and we've got, if you're watching, you can see where to go to check out Zoe's deconstructions, the sledge edge. Head over to www.bronzeserpentmedia.com and check them out, as they say back in the Berg. Good times for sure. So, but we're going to get into it. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, Zoe's back for a Threefer on his third appearance on the show, and we are doing throughout the year. We're all big
That's
SNL
what that means.
fans. Yes.
Duh.
Yes.
I'm like thinking, it's just gonna be three folks on the show. No, the Threefer. It's my third time. Wow, man. I'm slow. I'm slow.
But no. Threefer is our three favorites. It's the three favorites of a particular topic, then the plus one to counter all that. To throw a little monkey into the wrench and the wrench into the monkey.
So the Threefer thing is like very multifaceted.
Yes,
tonight it is.
It's
okay,
level.
all right.
Level. So, but tonight, I said throughout the year, we are going to be spotlighting, because SNL, Saturday Night Live's 50th year is going to be coming up in the fall. So they're just wrapping up they're in the process of wrapping up their 49th season now. And we're different topics throughout the year, whether it's our favorite characters, favorite years, things of that nature. But tonight, with Zoe in the house, I mentioned the musical knowledge inside this man's head. We're doing our three favorite musical acts that appeared on Saturday Night Live, plus one. We just looked at it and, So, with that topic, Zoe, why don't you kick us off as our guest here on All Over the Place?
Okay, man. This is going to be just like being back in school. I didn't do my homework.
Uh-oh.
Listen, man, you guys are really making me feel old here. I have not watched Saturday Night Live probably in about 30 years.
You missed nothing.
Probably about that. Okay, thank you, because I didn't want to be the oldest one here. About 30 years, man, and I really do not even remember what musical act. I think maybe the only musical act that I can probably remember from Saturday Night on Saturday Night Live is probably the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but I'm probably confusing that with the Arsenio Hall show, because I know they did a version of when they dropped their late at the time it was Mother's Milk, and they came on and they did a Higher Ground, and they tore that up. So that was one of those shows where, one of those night shows that they were on, and I remember that, and I don't think it was Saturday Night Live. So other than that, to remember, like, man, who was on Saturday Night Live that I would remember? It wasn't even impressionable. It wasn't impressionable enough for me to even remember. Dang, right? But like I said, this is 30 years, man. I just don't remember. That's just the last time I saw it.
Well, and that's one of the things that, as I was going through dusting off the cobwebs in the brain, it's often said that Saturday Night Live, your favorite year or years are either high school or college, maybe in a little bit after you get out into the quote unquote real world. But I've been blessed that my parents were, my dad, huge Belushi fan. And so Saturday Night Live has been a part of my vernacular and just since pretty much the beginning. And I remember just being a huge Star Wars fan. My parents actually allowed me to stay up late when Carrie Fisher hosted. And I think it was season 3, maybe season 4. And that was huge. And, then as 80s kicked in, Eddie Murphy joined the cast. And I was getting a little bit older. So, they would allow me to watch Saturday Night Live. I'd snicker at jokes. I'm like, I didn't really know, but I thought I did. But then, once I became a teenager and all that kicked in. So it's a show I've been watching for years. So with that in mind, and continuing, my mind goes in 5 million different directions. But after, it's been 30 years probably since I've watched regularly, like the mid 90s, since I've watched on a regular basis. But thanks to a little bit after that, as the 90s crept into the 21st century, YouTube has been a huge thing because admit the humor, the sketches just weren't as funny to me, especially, I can think of one sketch at the beginning of the 20th century, the Behind the Music with Fat Albert. I think it's one of the best sketches that they ever did on that show. Hilarious. And but again, I generally wouldn't watch the show, but if there's a musical act on, I didn't want to sit through all that. I'd wait till the next day. It would pop up on YouTube. I could see more performances that way. And so, and that goes through till now, especially now. But let me run down a few of my honor. We're going all over the place to help Zoe out. But you didn't do your homework, Zoe, but maybe will jog you a little bit, and you can say,
you did jog me a little bit when you said Belushi, because I do remember the Blues Brothers being on there. That was fun. I think they were on there. And then I think a musical act I remember is when Eddie Murphy did the Little Richard Simmons show. And he came on. Honey, never wear Battleship Gray. 10,000 sailors might try to board you, or 1,000 sailors might try to board you.
Or James Brown's Celebrity Hot Tub Club.
Oh, there you go. It's gonna make me sweat.
Yeah.
I think when he was even Buckwheat did some musical acts.
Yes.
When he was with Buckwheat. Oh man,
hit the buck. Try
hilarious.
3 times a mayday.
Otay.
Better hubba jibba dabba, and it just question mark. We don't know what the Buckwheat's saying, but yes, the Blues Brothers amazingly only made my honorable mention list. They appeared in seasons 3 and season 4, and another honorable mention with Belushi, season 2. Joe Cocker, I think one of the best sketches. It was an inadvertent sketch as far as I'm concerned. Joe Cocker's out there singing, and right behind him or to the side of him, John Belushi comes up and is doing the Joe Cocker imitation that, from how legend goes, that may have been his audition piece that got him the gig on SNL before, and then Joe Cocker's on in season 2, and he's just perfect, note for note, Joe Cocker with Belushi next to him. Season 2, Jay Giles Band, season 5, Spinal Tap, season 9. Eddie Murphy, the show that he hosted, the holiday show that he hosted at the end of 1984, Christmas episode, the Honey Drippers performed, and they did Rockin' at Midnight. And they did Santa Claus Is Coming to Town. Brian Setzer on guitar on that one. Okay. Believe it or not, and Marty's not here, this is going to be the replacements are only an honorable mention for me in season 11.
What?
I know.
I haven't
I'm
heard
glad
that.
everyone's sitting down for this one.
Yeah, that
they
band,
came
I
on
don't know how long.
Young and Kiss Me on the Bus. Changed up instruments. They were drunk off their asses. Harry Dean Stanton helped them in that regard as the host of that show. The Beastie Boys in season 20 doing Sure Shot was a great appearance for them. The Donnas in season 28. Outcast. Outcast has been on a couple of times, but in year 20, season 29, doing Hey Ya and The Way You Move Me. So Speaker Box, Love Below, promoting that album. Love Outcast. Great performance. Bruno Mars, probably my favorite artist of the 21st, pop artist of the 21st century. He's been on several times. Mark Ronson was with him one time. They did a killer Uptown Funk. Thank you, YouTube and Hulu, whoever it was for that one. Black Keys have been on multiple times. Jack White, love Jack White. He's been on multiple times. St. Vincent, Dua Lipa, Hall. In recent years, year 47, Halsey came on, and she sang a song with Lindsey Buckingham playing acoustic guitar. Amazing. But those are all my honorable mentions.
Man,
so
that's a list.
It's a list, and Marty's not here, but I got to throw out something I'm sure would have been on his list. Marty is a huge Devo fan, and when they came on in season 4, and they performed "I Can't Get No Satisfaction" and "Jocko Homo," I'm sure that would have been on Marty's list, and that was a lot of people's introduction to Devo on that one. So that one's going out to Marty.
Whip it good.
And Zoe, we'll whip back around to you, and maybe Jim and I can spark something as we go, a little commentary. Jim, I'll cut to you then for your bronze, silver, gold, however you want, or you want to go, or your honorable mentions.
All right, well, I'll do my number 3. Well, the Blues Brothers may not be good enough to squeak into your list, but they're good enough for mine, so they're my number 3. Blues Brothers, 1978, doing Soul Man. Okay. One of my favorite performances, absolutely fantastic. They got an introduction by the great Garrett Morris, and they just went out there and tore it up. So I rewatched that performance. I hadn't seen it in a while, and I'd forgotten just how agile Aykroyd and Belushi were as dancers. They could just tear it up. Great singers, great performance, amazing energy back then, and of course the band that backed them up was incredible. And best way in the world to promote your movie. Just come on there and play Soul Man for the crowd, and just a fantastic show they put on. So that's my pick for number 3.
I like.
Man, I'm looking forward to hearing what number 2 is.
Well, my number 3, my bronze. This was, and I forgot to mention The Time as another honorable mention for me. They were on promoting their Pandemonium album, and after they performed Chocolate, they did Jerk Out and Chocolate. I'm pretty sure it was Chocolate. Morris sitting down, and Jerome had set up a little table for him, and Morris in character, he drops an F-bomb. Like, what the F is this? And wasn't loud, but they didn't get banned. Other bands, like the Replacements, got banned for dropping F-bombs on the show. Morris, no, they got to stick around. So, but that's another of my honorable mentions. My number 3 is actually from the same season, year 16, Faith No More, performing Epic and From Out of Nowhere. And Mike Patton, one of my favorite frontmen, he vocally just tore it up that night. A great performance from Faith No More. And a few minutes into the song, he just crawled up into the rafters. And that was the year where they had the fan going on in the background with the musical performance. He's up there just doing gymnastics and just having a good time, being Mike Patton, being the crazy individual that he was, probably still is. So Faith No More from year 16, that is my number 3.
Good choice.
So, and Mr. I didn't do your homework. Anything new from either my pick or Jim's pick that jogs any memories or any commentary there on those?
Man, no, not at all. I don't even remember Faith No More being on there, but I do remember listening to Faith No More. I remember listening to Mr. Bungle. I guess maybe like at an age where I wasn't old enough to realize that he's a pervert, but but now it's like, that dude's a pervert, man. It's like, I don't think I want to listen to Mr. Bungle anymore. But I remember covering some of Faith No More songs, with my band at the time, 20 Pound Sledge. We would cover some of their songs. for kicks. But yeah. But in terms of them being on Saturday Night Live, nope, I don't remember.
Which Faith No More songs did you guys do?
We did we would do like a verse from Epic
Mm-hmm.
to segue into like another one of our songs.
Gotcha.
It's kind of fun to get the crowd to sing along to some of them jams that they used to dig before you go into one of yours. Yeah.
Sadly, unfortunately, I was not at one of those shows. I enjoyed the 20-pound sled shows regardless of whatever the intro was going. So.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you.
Those were good.
Oh, and speaking of which, because you were at the show, we were opening up for Fishbone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it turns out, man, Fishbone is they're not disbanding, but they're losing some key members. A couple of key members are going their separate ways, man. I think I don't know this for sure, but it sounds like Norwood, Fisher, and Walter Kibbe are stepping out. I guess at least and the weird thing is that one of the show that you saw, the singer for 20-Pound Sledge at the time used to be the co-vocalist with Fishbone for like about 10 years. I remember you telling me that, yeah, before Walter Kibbe, while Walter Kibbe was playing with Year of the Dragon, he was in there playing. He was with them for a while, and then he joined our band, and then now he's not. So.
So does it sound to me like Fishbone is you're losing some key members? Are they? Do you envision them going on like Foreigner, and they eventually just become a cover band with no original members?
Yeah, right. I don't know. I mean, I think. The band is pretty much more centered around Angelo Moore. I think they can get away with keeping on going. But Norwood, I mean, because like say for instance. Some people think like it's just not the same without Norwood on bass, but his brother Fish hasn't been with Fish, and Fish was when you talk about like a person who could really kick on the drums, he went to go play with 24/7 Spies for a while, so So they had a Wet Daddy playing on drums, and Fishbone kept on trucking. I don't think anybody tripped, so I don't think it'll be that. Not to say that it's not a big deal, but I don't think it's a deal breaker, and a band breaker that if Norwood, it's going to hurt. Sure. It definitely, the vibe is going to be different, but, I don't think it's, like I said, a deal breaker if Norwood and Walter Kibbe, because Walter Kibbe was out for a while. Fishbone kept on going. So.
Well, either way, I will skank to the beat later on tonight. with
Get your skank on.
I'll drop the needle on Say Anything soundtrack just for them. Well, Jim, over to you.
All right, so on to my number two. So my number two is from 1994. It's largely for the nostalgia factor because I was just the right age to appreciate this one to the max. But it's from the Emilio Estevez hosting episode, which hugely underrated episode. His
I know where you're going with this. Yes.
His comedic chops on that episode were great. He did a sketch where he was. Him and the other cast members were these roided out bodybuilders, and it was called How Much You Bench. They did a talk show where they were just so roided out in these fake muscles and completely aggro, screaming at everything. It's hilarious. But anyway, great show. But Pearl Jam was the act for that show, I mean, is there really anything more early 90s than Emilio Estevez introducing Pearl Jam on Saturday Night Live? But their performance was fantastic. They played Daughter and I think Rearview Mirror. Fantastic. I believe Eddie wore a K on his t-shirt to commemorate Kurt Cobain having recently passed away. So that was a nice tribute in that show. But they were just absolutely at the top of their game. Dave was still drumming for him. I think that was the year that he left, and just a fantastic drummer. And
David Bruce, absolutely, yeah.
One of those last names I cannot pronounce, but that sounds like it. Just a fantastic performance overall, and nice little time portal these days. So.
Now, I think the only thing more early 90s than that was Adam Sandler. His imitation of Eddie Vedder on one of the Saturday on the weekend. Oh, give a dipper, don't know what I say. Yeah. I think it's the only thing that'd be more 90s. But yeah, that was a great episode. And Versus, my favorite Pearl Jam to this day. And yeah, they killed it that night, no doubt.
Absolutely.
And I'm sticking in that same time frame though. And Jim, in case you were worried that I was going to double up on that one with you, no.
All
Although I'm staying in the same year, and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, I believe, had 8 performances on Saturday Night Live through the years. But the one that they did in season 20, either 94, 95 or 93, 94, they're promoting, it was Tom Petty solo technically. They're promoting the Wildflowers album. And joining them on drums that night was Dave Grohl.
Dave Grohl, okay.
Because Cobain had died the year, and so he was in between bands, and he played drums on that one. They did Honeybee and You Don't Know How It Feels, and he was almost asked to be a member of the Heartbreakers, but in conversations with Petty, Dave was letting him know about what became Foo Fighters, and Petty's like, if I remember the story correctly, Petty's just like, you know what? Why I think you can do a little bit. Continue with what you're doing. But Grohl on drums that night was amazing, and Tom Petty just, again, like Jim mentioned with Pearl Jam, Tom Petty, Wildflowers at the top of his game at that particular time, and just 8 appearances. That's the one that sticks out the most for me.
Wow, Tom Petty and Dave Grohl, what a combo! Wow,
right? I
Hard to
saw
picture.
that. Yeah,
Nice.
And Dave, I found it again with the research. Dave Grohl, whether it's as Foo Fighters or joining Petty, he also drummed for McCartney, Mick Jagger when they were musical guests, and also when he performed with them, Crooked Vultures. They've all been on it. But if the count is correct, 15 times Dave Grohl has been a musical performer on SNL.
Yeah, Dave Grohl's like the Ringo Starr of our generation, man. Just a working drummer.
He really is.
Yeah, it's like one of the. It's not like, and I'm not trying to because he's a much more successful drummer than I am, but it's not like it's like Dave Grohl is like known for being these amazing chops or anything like that. He's just known for being a drummer for amazing bands, and not to say that he's not a good drummer at all, but it's like the same thing with Ringo. It's like when you think like Ringo, it's like compared to like some other players, like Ringo's like, but in terms of like who you gonna call to work on this album, you call Ringo. Right, play it like Ringo, and so Dave Grohl, like for our generation, works a lot. He's faces behind the kit for a lot of things, and so yeah, kudos to him, man. It's like, man, I'd love to have a career as a drummer, but
did you ever see the clip of Dave Grohl talking with Pharrell Williams? And
yeah,
Pharrell,
I think so.
Pharrell saying what a great drummer you are, and Dave's just like, yeah, I basically just rip up all those funk bands from the late 70s, early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the Gap Band. Pharrell's like, But then he ran into Tony Thompson at a party. He's like, man, I've been ripping you off for years. And Tony Thompson's just like, I know. What do they say? Don't meet your heroes sometimes. But yeah.
Or imitation's the highest form of flattery.
Yeah.
Or that, exactly.
That's how you look at it.
Yeah, we already got those reactions on our last one. So, Jim, I'm going to flip back on up to you.
All right. So for my number 1, this one's really more about just the emotional impact it had on me more than anything else. It's the first show after 9/11. It started with a kind of a ceremony with some of the FDNY and Mayor Giuliani and Lorne Michaels, and obviously very somber. But although Giuliani got one of the best jokes I've ever heard on there when Lorne Michaels says, "Can we still be funny?" and Giuliani says, "Why start now?" But but yeah, after that, it went over to Paul Simon, who did a amazing performance of The Boxer. And just the kind of perfectly captured the mood at the time, and very bittersweet, beautiful song, and really hit me right here when it happened, and so it's always been unforgettable for me. That's my pick. for number one.
Right on.
I remember that show vividly, but I did not remember Paul Simon's performance. So, but yeah, it's all coming back now, and yeah, it was perfect for that time. Absolutely. Yep.
Wow.
I'm going to flip the emotional switch 180 degrees, though. And my number one is going to be going back to my favorite year for Saturday Night Live. I was a freshman in high school for the 1984-85 season. And it's a song that I cannot believe. The last time Zoe was here, we talked. The Threefer was in regards to our favorite deconstructed covers. And as I went through this, I'm kicking myself that I did not bring this up then. Frankie Goes to Hollywood performing. And they did Two Tribes, and they did a cover of Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run.
Wow.
And I don't, there's a bold statement that's about to come out of my mouth, but I consider that the definitive Born to Run. I like it better than the Boss.
Wow.
I got nothing wrong with the Bosses, but I think Frankie Goes to Hollywood made it their own. And if I need to listen to Born to Run, if I need those lyrics, I'm going to go to Frankie Goes to Hollywood. And preferably, and it's hard to find the performance from SNL because of all the rights issues. But if you can track that down, them doing it live, amazing. And that's my number one for my favorite SNL performances.
Oh, wow. I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't remember that one at all. And I'm definitely going to look that up. Frankie Going to Hollywood doing Born to Run. And what's it? Blinded by the Light. That's Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, from his first album, Greens from Asbury Park. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that until years later, man. Because I've always known Manfred Mann's version of it, and they sound totally different. His overhaul of that song was was really what was needed. But I prefer their version, over Springsteen's, yeah.
And you probably know that the Pointer Sisters' Fire was actually a Springsteen song.
Oh man, and the Pointer Sisters, man, they could take anything and make it funky. And the thing about you listen to these bands in the 80s. I much more prefer their 70s stuff, man. Like the Pointer Sisters, they had they also did we all know that song 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. That's Pointer Sisters. Or things like Yes We Can, and Pointer Sisters. Yeah, they can even take something from Bruce Springsteen and
Well, I want to make sure I get this right here. Technically, I think he just wrote it and he gave it to them, and then he ended up. It was on his Big Huge Live album, 75 to 85. So I think that was he performed it after them, and I think Because the Night, Patti Smith did it, and then he did his version as well.
Yeah, a lot of those songs, the people will write, and we didn't know that that was somebody else who wrote it. Like, say for instance, I just did a cover of Heart and Soul by Huey Lewis and the News. Like I said, I like picking some weird songs, man, and doing those. And before Huey Lewis and the News did it, Exile did it. They didn't. I don't think they wrote it, but Exile had done that song. And speaking of which, people writing songs or doing songs, I think one of the reasons why I didn't remember any performances on Saturday Night Live is because of how self-absorbed I am. Because if the only band that I really cared about being on Saturday Night Live at the time, when I'm thinking like 30 years ago, was mine. It's like I want my band to perform on Saturday Night Live. But I'd like to think I'm not that self-absorbed anymore. Hopefully, but God willing, I'll be able to get because one of the things that I'm trying to do is getting my content, the Zoloft and the Zopium Den, which are actually supposed to be comedy sketch shows. So I'll be using those shows. Maybe we could talk about those at another time where we can talk about it a little bit. But that's why I don't remember, because I'm too focused on doing my own shows where I'll have musical guests and all that sort of stuff, and they'll have comedy skits for the Zoloft and the Zopium Den, and we'll get those going on. And then I can remember like who was on there, because I guess I'll kind of have to.
Breaking news here. Awesome breaking news. I'm not sure if this is... Folks, you may be hearing it here on All Over the Place for the first time, but I'm excited hearing that news coming from the Zoloft. That is cool.
Maybe a return to some of the stuff you did up for PJ TV a little bit.
Hopefully a little bit. I mean, because I'm thinking, folks who dig Monty Python, or Saturday Night Live, Chappelle Show, or even the Young Ones or Kids in the Hall, that kind of stuff. So that's what the Zoloft and the Zopium Den are supposed to really become. And and I like the way the young ones used to do it. They involve their musical guests into this random comedy or musical guests that they would have like worked into their skits. I love that sort of stuff. So that's the kind of stuff that we most likely will be doing with the Zoloft and the Zopium Den.
It's a non-Saturday Night Live thing, but one of my favorite performances was when Motorhead was on the young ones.
I don't know if I remember that one.
Oh, look that one up. It let Lemmy just being Lemmy. So yeah,
that says it all right there. You don't need a script, man. Just be Lemmy.
And now we're gonna, as we always do on a Threefer, we're gonna flip the script to the plus one will be a band being on that show that we're just like, either the music didn't work for us, or what's this person doing there, or that's.
Did you do your number one, Eric, or did I miss that?
What's that?
Did you do your number one already?
Oh yeah, Frank Goes to Hollywood.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
I thought that was an honorable mention. Okay, cool.
Oh no, that in a long list of honorable mentions. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Although I do have I got one honorable mention in the plus one, but we'll get to that in a second because we're going to go to you, Jim Culver.
All right. So for my so my honorable mention. First of all, I'm going to add an honorable mention to my top three, which I mentioned earlier. It's not actually a musical guest, but it's a musical performance, and that's King Tut by Steve Martin.
Oh, okay.
Which I absolutely loved. Didn't really qualify because he's not a musical guest, but yeah, some of the musical stuff he did on that show was great. And yeah, King Tut is a bizarre classic.
I do remember that one, man. Good call.
Number three, he was backed by essentially the Blues Brothers band.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So for my bottom plus one, I'm gonna start with, I do have an honorable mention for that one, and that's Sinead O'Connor. Which I probably don't have to explain why, but let's just say it would feel like kind of the start of something that celebrities have been doing way too much of lately. But I'll skip ahead to my actual pick, which is the infamous Ashlee Simpson debacle. I don't know how many people remember that these days, but back in the early 2000s, Ashlee Simpson was Jessica Simpson's sister. She was an aspiring singer. Kind of on the rise a little bit, but she basically killed her career when this happened, and that's younger viewers probably have a hard time believing that Saturday Night Live used to be that culturally significant where you could destroy your career by being on it, but that's basically what happened. She got up there, she did one song which wasn't bad, and then she got up for her second song. It turned out she basically outed herself as lip syncing because the same song started up again, and she started singing the second song, and basically just revealed herself as a faker in front of the entire world, and kind of sad. I think Jude Law was the host that night, so at the end of the show when they were doing the outro, she gave this kind of half-assed apology with Jude Law standing awkwardly next to her and saying, "Sorry about that. I don't know what happened, so I just did a hoedown on stage," which is what she did. She started doing this random dance. But her career was basically over at that point. So, I mean, there's a lot of bands that I didn't much like on Saturday Night Live, but I don't see how you could do worse than that. So that's my number one, or my plus one.
Man, the thing is, well, I mean, that's not really her fault. I mean, did she get any sort of recourse for that? I mean, if the DJ or whoever's like the music producer for that segment didn't have the right music like queued up and stuff like that for her to do,
yeah. I imagine more people lost their careers over that than just her, but she was the one that was front and center that everybody knew about. So,
but also, man, when they do those kind of shows, I don't care if it's Saturday Night Live or American Bandstand, people, they kind of know that they're playing to a track. That's how it's been, like freaking Solid Gold, Midnight Special. They
but the name of the show is Saturday Night Live.
Okay, you got me there. You
would think.
Well, she's live lip syncing.
Technically live, yeah.
The hoedown was live. Yeah, that was an awkward moment.
A little bit. Yeah, she may not deserve to lose her job, but that's, I think people were getting sick of her anyway because she didn't have a lot of talent, and she was just kind of had a famous sister, was getting pushed on everybody. At the time, the pop stars were just getting pushed on us, and so many of them people were just sick and tired of, I think. But anyway.
It's like, girl, people sick of you anyway. Let's just do this thing. Right? It's like you go on. It's like you're gonna lip sync, right? It's okay. Well, it's fine. That's what it is. But yeah, it's kind of messed up. She got Milli Vanilli.
Yep.
And now backing tracks are fairly accepted in the music world. Not by me, mind you, but more people are accepting of them. Looking at you, Kiss. Anyhow, for my number one or my negative one, however you want to put it, it's because I just never cared for them. Nelson, when they were on season 11, but they were popular at the time, just not working for me. And that was when it was my high school. I think I was 17 years old when that was on. So that was just getting into my prime SNL. Anyway, but Nelson. But another one, and this is no fault of this guy, because Percy Sledge, a voice, an amazing voice. But when he came out in season 12 and did When a Man Loves a Woman, I'm pretty sure that's the only song he did that. I'm like, why? Again, great voice, but to me, it did not fit on SNL.
I can see that.
It's
that's
as negative as I can get about that show at the time. And Percy Sledge got When a Man Loves a Woman, amazing song. But SNL didn't. It just had me scratching my head.
Maybe SNL wanted to show that they had some some depth and nuance and.
Well, I believe that season was Sade's second performance on the show. So I mean, Anita Baker was on that season, I believe, as well. So,
all right, yeah.
But again, it just and just singing one song. Musical guests usually sing two. It's like maybe someone who was supposed to perform and they bailed at the last second. Percy was available. Let's bring him on. Maybe that was the case. So if that's the case, Percy, I apologize anyway for my. But maybe I should have just made Nelson my number one.
It's like it shouldn't have been too much of a chore for him for him to do two songs. I mean, it's not like they had to rehearse it. You're gonna play to a musical track anyway. Just make sure you know what track you're playing to.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and I think there is something to be said for, a band fitting in with the tone of the show. Like, I think one of the most famous or infamous bands on SNL, depending on how you look at it, was Rage Against the Machine. And, they performed their music really well, but it just, you go from some goofy Will Ferrell sketch to, Sleep Now in the Fire, or, whatever, just, screaming out communism propaganda. It's like, it just doesn't fit at all,
Right.
So you kind of got to keep that in mind. This is the tone you're going for.
Yeah. And I've seen Rage Against the Machine like a couple times, and the music is slamming, but it's like you just have to really listen past. It's like, dang, Zach, just all that. Yeah.
Once again, I want to thank everyone for listening, and just remember to subscribe, like, share, get it out there. I also want you to. I've got it scrolling across there on the bottom for our guests tonight. So Rachel, multi-medium and friend of the show, friend of for years going back. Be sure to check him out over at www.bronzeserpentmedia.com. And Zoe, thanks again. Even though you didn't do your homework, your music, all the music knowledge, it's all there. It's as my grandma baby. It was a delight having you on the show. Always on the show, and I can't wait to bring it back when we're talking about Zoloft taking on, just stepping into SNL territory and beyond.
Right on, man. I appreciate it.
All right, Jim Culver, as always, thank you, my friend. Awesome show. And next time we're back, Christine, Marty, here on All Over the Place. Thanks for listening, everybody. Take care.